My guest on Under the Skin is Zwelinzima Vavi, Secretary General of the South African Federation of Trade Unions. Zwelinzima Vavi, welcome to Under the Skin.
Thank you very much for having me on this very important month of workers.
Where did you learn your politics as a young man?
My experiences as a young child laborer, as a son of a former mine worker and a child laborer, domestic worker, from my brothers literally who grew up in the farms, all of them telling stories about the brutalization. And that's where I learned my politics. It was out of listening, of experiencing, of being exposed to the brutality of the farm, white farmers that they were meeting out against their employees. And my anger grew up there. And the zeal to want to do something about it basically started when I was still very, very young, I must say. Yeah.
So first 11 years, you're living on a farm near Hanover. Then you moved to Sada in the Eastern Cape. That kind of anger and tales of how badly workers are treated can go one of two ways. You can either say, I must keep my head down and make sure I don't get in trouble, or somebody must have said to you, you can live a life where you fight back. Who was that somebody? Or maybe it was more than one person.
It was just too many people. You remember when we were rooted out of the farms, we were not just my family. It was
Yes.
loads and loads of other families of farm workers who were being moved into a new settlement, which was an ideal, dry, barren place. It is a reserve for those that must be humiliated, the black African workers. So we were settled there, evicted from the farms, settled in this area, in the fields annexed from the neighboring peasants. Just take their land, sand dunes, left, right, and center, no infrastructure. That started to build four-roomed houses.
A dumping ground.
It was a dumping house. It was created, I guess, for two purposes. Firstly, Sada, the township that we are talking about, was created to be a place where all of the political prisoners who were being banished after serving their 5 years in Robben Island and other prisons in South Africa were to be dumped in, banished, banned there. And secondly, it was meant to be a place where farm workers will be settled. Those that are now discarded, too old, like my father, would have to find a place somewhere else after having been milked throughout their working lives. So that was the purpose. And later, they decided to incorporate that township into the Bandustan that they wanted to prop up, the Ciskei Bandustan.
Your father was a mine worker. What did he say to you? Did he say, follow me to the mines, or did he say, whatever you do, don't go there, it's a terrible place?
My father have succumbed, like all other farm workers and like all other workers in that generation have succumbed. And his pleas with me was always, don't rock the boat. Look at what happened to Nelson Mandela, who was serving a lifetime in prison at the time. Look at what have happened to a very popular Xhosa king, who was taken to Robben Island, in fact, the first prisoner to be taken in Robben Island, Makana Kanxele, and who never returned. So they were so intimidated by the system. You know, Nelson Mandela was only whispered about in the safest of the corners. Nobody could dare speak about Nelson Mandela. It was more like a lesson to us. Look what happened to Nelson Mandela. You don't want that to happen to you as well.
So don't emulate him.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, there's trouble down the road. You spoke right at the beginning of the interview that you were angry from an early age. Are you still angry now? And do you think that sometimes maybe blurs your political judgment from time to time, that you have pause to think and say, you know what, I was a little bit too hot on that matter?
I'm angry and I'm stupidly honest. I say what I believe in, and no matter what. And
Yes.
I've paid heavily in my political career for being too honest. And some of my own friends and comrades have told me that I can never make it in politics because I do not hide how I feel inside. And I'm too disappointed about how the whole NDR, or National Democratic Revolution project, have turned out. And I feel absolutely betrayed at a personal level by the people that I put my trust on their shoulders. And I feel that the workers in this country have been so betrayed and by the project. And it has failed them so dismally that is something that, in my view, they should be galvanized and they should continue to mobilize to make sure that they reclaim their own destiny moving forward.
Is there something, though, Mr. Vavi, that comes to mind that you've said that you wish you hadn't said because it hasn't helped you when you've got to sit down and hammer a deal through? Maybe there's more than one. Maybe there's a lot.
There are a lot. When you are involved in a struggle as intense as we are involved in,
yes,
you're bound to make many mistakes. And I've committed many mistakes in my life. The worst of all was the support for President Zuma. I now believe that support was uncritical. It was too emotional. It was based on anger against President Mbeki, and we believed as a result nonsense, such as the conspiracy theory that all of the corruption charges were part of the manipulation of the system by him and the supporters. That was wrong. I've come out in public to say I was wrong and I apologize. And there have been quite a few others. You know, I've believed in people that I thought that they were genuine communists, genuine socialists. And I've been proven later that these people are just, what do you call it, J-call in a ship's skin. And I've had to say, sorry, I made a mistake here. I've committed huge personal blunders, and a lot of them have received huge publicity. I'm a human being. I'm not a saint. I've never presented myself as an angel, not in any way.